You know what's fascinating? We live in a world where people will spend 45 minutes debating their Myers Briggs type on Reddit, but they've never stopped to think about what their Spotify Wrapped says about their psychological makeup. Yeah, that algorithm isn't just recommending songs based on your taste in music. It's basically conducting a personality assessment every time you hit repeat on that one song you definitely don't want your friends to know about. So today, we're diving into the uncomfortable truth about how your music choices are basically a psychological profile that you willingly broadcast to the world. And before we start, just a heads up, this is purely for entertainment and informational purposes. If you're dealing with serious mental health concerns, please seek help from a qualified professional, not your playlist. Let's start with the obvious one. If your most played genre is pop music, congratulations, you're probably what psychologists call highly extroverted. You thrive on social connection, you love being around people, and you probably have strong opinions about which Taylor Swift era was the best. Research shows pop music lovers tend to be more outgoing, less creative than they think they are, and surprisingly anxious beneath all that social butterfly energy. You're the person who knows all the words to songs you claim to hate, and you absolutely lose your mind when someone plays your jam at a party. The contradiction is real. You want to be unique, but you also need that shared cultural experience of singing along to something everyone knows. Now, if you're one of those people whose entire personality revolves around listening to music that was recorded before your parents were born, we need to talk. Classical music enthusiasts tend to score higher on openness to experience and creativity, which makes sense because you probably spend your free time explaining to people why Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is actually about the human condition. You're introspective, you value tradition, and you're probably the type of person who gets genuinely frustrated when people don't appreciate the complexity of a good fugue. The weird part is, you're often more emotionally reserved than people who blast their feelings through pop songs, yet you're drawn to music that's literally designed to make people weep in concert halls. Heavy metal fans, you're not fooling anyone with your gentle demeanor. Studies consistently show that metalheads are actually some of the most creative, open-minded people out there, despite the fact that your music sounds like construction equipment having an emotional breakdown. You tend to be introverted but not antisocial, highly intelligent, and you have this fascinating relationship with aggression. You channel it through your music instead of your actual interactions with people. The irony is thick here. You listen to songs about chaos and destruction, but you're probably more likely to help an old lady cross the street than someone whose playlist is all inspirational pop anthems. Hip-hop lovers present an interesting psychological puzzle. The genre attracts people who value authenticity and social awareness, which explains why you can quote lyrics that break down complex social issues, but you still get irrationally angry when someone calls it just noise. You tend to be more assertive. You have strong opinions about everything, and you're probably the person in your friend group who always knows what's happening in the world. There's this beautiful contradiction where you're drawn to music that often talks about struggle and overcoming obstacles, yet research shows hip-hop fans tend to be more optimistic than average. You're basically processing the world's problems through beats and rhymes, and somehow that makes you more hopeful about fixing them. Country music enthusiasts, let's address the elephant in the room. No, you don't have to own a pickup truck or live on a farm, but you probably do have some strong feelings about family values and personal responsibility. Psychology research suggests country fans tend to be more conscientious, more agreeable, and significantly more emotionally stable than people who listen to other genres. You're drawn to storytelling, you value authenticity over complexity, and you probably get genuinely upset when people dismiss country music as simple. The fascinating part is that you're attracted to music that often deals with heartbreak, loss, and life's difficulties, but you process these themes in a way that actually makes you more resilient. And here's where I'm going to pause and ask you to subscribe, because if you're still watching, you're probably the type of person who enjoys having your musical choices psychoanalyzed, and that means you'd probably enjoy our other videos where we dive deep into the weird ways your brain works. Plus, it helps us keep making content that calls out your questionable life choices in the most loving way possible. Electronic and dance music lovers, you're interesting creatures. You're drawn to music that's literally designed to alter your brain chemistry, and research shows you tend to be more open to new experiences and less neurotic than average. You probably have strong opinions about which DJ saved electronic music, and you definitely get frustrated when people don't understand the subtle differences between house, techno, and trance. The psychological pattern here is fascinating. You're attracted to music that creates a temporary escape from reality, but you're also typically more grounded and less anxious than people who listen to genres focused on emotional expression. Jazz enthusiasts represent a unique psychological profile that deserves special attention. You tend to score higher on intellectual curiosity and openness to experience, but here's the kicker. You're also more likely to be perfectionistic and self-critical. You appreciate complexity and improvisation in music, but you probably overthink your own creative endeavors. Jazz lovers often have this internal tension between wanting to be spontaneous like their favorite musicians and being paralyzed by their own high standards. You're the person who can explain why Miles Davis was a genius, but you second-guess your own creative decisions constantly. The really interesting thing about all this research is what it reveals about musical omnivorousness. People who listen to multiple genres across the spectrum. If your playlist looks like it was created by someone with multiple personality disorder, you're actually demonstrating higher levels of cognitive flexibility and emotional intelligence. You're comfortable with contradiction. You don't need your identity to be defined by a single aesthetic choice, and you're probably better at reading social situations than people who stick to one genre. But here's where things get really weird. The songs you listen to when you're alone versus the music you play in social settings reveal completely different aspects of your personality. Your private playlist is your psychological truth serum. It's where you process emotions you don't want to discuss, explore aspects of yourself you keep hidden, and indulge in musical guilty pleasures that would horrify your carefully curated public image. The algorithm knows this, by the way. Streaming services can predict your mood, your relationship status, and probably your likelihood of making questionable life decisions based on your listening patterns. They know when you're going through a breakup because your sad song rotation suddenly becomes very specific and very repetitive. They know when you're trying to get motivated because you start binging workout playlists at weird hours. What's really fascinating is how musical preferences change during major life transitions. People going through divorce suddenly develop an appreciation for angry breakup songs they never liked before. New parents find themselves gravitating toward more optimistic, hopeful music. College students typically expand their musical horizons dramatically, then narrow them again once they enter the workforce and need music that helps them cope with the crushing reality of adult responsibilities. The neurochemical aspect of all this is equally revealing. Different genres trigger different neurotransmitter responses, which means your musical preferences are literally shaping your brain chemistry on a daily basis. You're essentially self-medicating with specific frequencies and rhythms, whether you realize it or not. Your music reveals your coping mechanisms, your social needs, your relationship with authority, your comfort level with emotional expression, and your fundamental worldview. It's a psychological assessment you take every time you press play, and the results are probably more accurate than any personality test you've ever completed. So next time someone judges your musical taste, remember, they're not just criticizing your playlist, they're basically performing amateur psychoanalysis on your entire personality structure.